Welcome back. Now, some schools in Gauteng have given parents an ultimatum. They say they must pay their school fees or be handed over to lawyers. But some say they're struggling to make ends meet due to job losses. To discuss this further, we're joined by the Department of Education spokesperson Steve Mabona here in Gauteng and Matakanye Matakanya from the National Association of School Governing Bodies. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. And Dada Mabona, is it normal for schools to threaten parents with legal action when fees are not up to date?
Well, remember, the SGB has a responsibility to govern the school. So they are given that power by parents. Because remember, whatever decision they take at the school level, it would have been adopted, or parents would have said, yes, we agree with that. There's no SGB that will introduce any regulation, any law, anything that has to do with governance at the school without consulting parents. So the parent body would have agreed that in the event a parent is not capable of paying, we will do certain remedies or employ certain remedies for the parent to pay. But normally, schools will not go and threaten parents without trying to interact with parents. So oftentimes we receive complaints from parents, and when we interact with them, we find that they have not actually made inroads to interact with the school and make sure that they have probably an arrangement of some sort for them to make those payments. So the schools will then go to that way as a last resort. In many cases, when we get evidence, we'll find that actually the school has been trying to interact with the parent, but the parent did not even make an effort to even consult or even interact or even go to the school to say, here's my situation, how can you assist me?
It's been quite a difficult year for South Africa. Some parents would say that they've lost their jobs due to COVID-19, and then we saw the 3-week unrest that we witnessed or the week-long unrest that we witnessed in KZN and here in Gauteng, where people lost their jobs and businesses even there. So shouldn't there be some leeway, at least for this year, in terms of that?
But remember, you have a contract with the school as a parent. So it's your responsibility as a parent to initiate, go to the school and say, this is what is happening, because the school would not know. If you don't go to the school and say, this is my situation, how can you assist me as a school? Surely there's no school that will then want to take you to lawyers. Meanwhile, you have actually made some inroads, made some effort to go to the school and make those arrangements. In many cases, schools will then be amenable to those arrangements and say, yes, we understand. Now, when do you think you will be in a position to pay? And that will then consider whether one is employed or what might have happened now. And then they will have those arrangements. But failing which, they will then also interact with the parent. And the parent must still go back and say, the situation is still the same. Please accommodate me. And they will do that. But when they go to the extreme of threatening with lawyers, it means that parent was not forthcoming, did not interact with the school does not know what is really happening, and then they will take that last resort. But I'm sure Matakanye can attest, there's no school that will just go and threaten a parent with lawyers.
But before I bring in Ndata Matakanye, let me actually go to him, actually. Ndata Matakanye, I don't know if you could hear the spokesperson of the Gauteng Education Department saying that, as SGB, parents obviously vote for their school governing body, and the school governing body governs the school. And it's mostly parents who will decide that, schools are allowed to go to the extent of threatening legal action against parents who are unable to pay. Isn't this anti-poor and exclusionary?
Thank you very much, Masego, once again. I did not hear Steve, but according to the law, South African School Act, the parents, Section 40, it says parents are liable for school fees. The school fees that has been determined is true, that has been determined by the school governing bodies. And having said that, the condition that we find ourselves in, the law once again allows the parents to apply for exemptions. So it therefore means that the advent of pandemic is that a lot of parents lost their employment, so there's no money. So then the parents have got right to apply for exemptions. An exemption, well, is determined in 3 ways. They will see that which one does that particular parents fall under. So to take the parents to court now, I don't think it will also work, because we also talk to the Department of Basic Education to say, do you understand that this pandemic has caused havoc? A lot of parents lost their job. Then parents are paying, particularly schools that are fee paying. Parents cannot pay school fees anymore. Then we have got a problem of the payments of teachers. So can you look into that as the department to say, how do we retain those teachers that have been paid from the governing body's funds? And I think at that level, we agreed with the Department of Basic Education. So there are three levels that parents have to do. I've already indicated that parents can apply for exemption. They can be exempted. They know that parents are no more working. They've been paying all these years, but they can be exempted.
Yeah, Ndate Matakanye, I also want to come in there with respect to, and I'll explain to Ndate Mabona what you've been saying, because I understand that you guys are struggling in terms of hearing each other. But I just wanted to also go back to what you said, where you said that, parents cannot pay, and it gets to a point where, schools and governing bodies, as well as those parents who decided on that rule, to understand. I mean, if you take a parent to court, for instance, and it's clear that they cannot pay, you're just doubling the amount that you're expecting them to pay, because once lawyers are involved and legal people are involved, the money that the parent ends up owing is more. And doesn't that also just return to the vicious cycle of the parent not being able to pay anyway?
Particularly under this condition, Masego, where we engage the Department of Basic Education, also the law allows the parents for relief to say if a parent cannot pay, that parent must apply for exemptions. So I don't understand why are these guys really trying to frustrate parents. I don't know, because they know that, and they've got the history of these parents, that all these years before the advent of this pandemic, they've been paying school fees. And it is a clear evidence enough to say now is the time that these parents must, of course, yes, as you said, the governing body has the right to determine the school fees. And I indicated that, yes, the parents are liable for the school fees, yes. But also the law allows them to apply for exemptions. So why are schools not giving these parents that leeway of applying for exemptions? And I think that's where the Department of Education must go, instead of just agreeing with those schools to say, no, schools have got the right. Yes, of course, they've got right.
I think I must come in there, Mr. Matakanye, because you're saying something very important. Tata Mabona, what he's saying is that even though the school governing bodies and parents have the right to determine the amount of school fees and the way to get those fees paid so that those teachers are paid, there is also the issue of, trying to understand, and the department also taking responsibility as, the head of the entire education system. system to say that even though schools are allowed to determine, we need to come in as a department whenever help is needed, instead of just always saying SGB has the right, because it means it's anti-poor. You're excluding those parents and possibly even those children from having their right to a quality education.
It is true. It is true, Masego.
Sorry, Ntate Matakanye, I was just asking Steve Mabona to respond to that. I was explaining to him what you were saying and asking him to respond. Ntate Mabona?
He forgot that he speaks for the associations. Look, the exemption is part of the governance process. As a parent, yes, you need to put your case on the table for you to be assessed whether you do qualify for an exemption or not. And SGB is part of that process. I don't know why that Matakanye will say the department. At the school level, that process is open, but a parent should be forthcoming. Because remember, it's evidence-driven. You can't say, give me exemption. What are the basis of that? You need to put then evidence on the table to say, yes, I need exemption because need of it because there's evidence that is supporting that you are applying for an exemption. And that process is then started at the school level.
Surely government, I'm sorry to come in, surely government is above, for instance, a school governing body, and government can intervene. When you see, for instance, that, in a certain school, for instance, there's just too many parents complaining, too many parents saying that they don't have the funds, surely you can't say that the responsibility is on the SGB and the parents of that school, and therefore, as the department, we will accept whatever they say.
No. You don't do that. Education is highly regulated. That Matakanye will tell you. The SGB is brought by the legislation. It's not the department. The SGB is regulated as per the Act, and they will normally refer to the Act and go on and check on how what is the responsibility of an SGB. So the department cannot say there are complaints at a certain school, let's exempt all of them, or let's exempt a certain number of them. What is the basis? Because remember, that exemption, it means the department must foot that bill. We need to pay. Now, we cannot just say, let's exempt a certain school. There must be compelling evidence that will be coming from the parent, that will be going to the school will know how to manage, and the SGB of that school will be part of that decision-making to say, yes, a certain number of parents must be, or we recommend that they are exempted. And then we go through that process. The department cannot take that decision not informed, because then
so the department
coming and
I'm so sorry, Ntate Mabona. I'm running out of time. I just have one quick one for you. The department cannot intervene during this time. These are not normal times, for instance. COVID-19, the unrest, a lot of people have lost their jobs. These are statistics that are all over the place. We know it already. Children have had to learn from school, for instance. At home, for instance. So could you not, at this point, at least during this time of what's happening right now with the pandemic, come in as a department and say, schools and SGBs, as well as parents, how can we assist as government? You can't do that.
Parents need to interact with the schools and say, here is my problem, I need assistance. Then that information should be packaged and will then be processed. But the department, from where we are sitting, we can't take a blanket decision to say, let's exempt. The school and the SGB, they process the exemption process, and then come to the department, then we exempt. So we will interact with the school, basing ourselves on the information that is coming on in the school level. So parents need to interact with the schools and say, here's my situation, and I need to be assisted.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess it's a battle of parents having to speak for themselves and individually. Thank you very much, Steve Mabona, the spokesperson of the Gauteng Education Department, and Matakanye Matakanye from the Association of Schools of Governing Bodies.